Around the time of Jesus, the people of Palestine and the surrounding regions would have been most familiar with a popular ancient Egyptian court hieroglyphic, wherein a slave is portrayed as the bearer of Pharaoh's sandal. Today, as we mark the nativity of St. John the Baptist, we recall that he was the precursor and the forerunner of Jesus Christ. He came to prepare the way for Jesus, or even better, to prepare a people fit for the Lord. Now, John never claimed to be the one whose advent triggered the coming of the kingdom. John says very straightforward, I am not the Messiah. I am not the light. One more powerful than I will follow me. And then John points to this popular ancient hieroglyphic and says, according to today's second reading, the Acts of the Apostles, I am not even worthy to unfasten the sandals on his feet. He makes it clear that his role is subordinate to that of Jesus. Well, after John was beheaded by Herod, Jesus says, I say to you, among those born of the woman, there has been none greater than John the Baptist. Then Jesus surprises us. In fact, he shocks us, saying, yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. It makes me think of the great privilege and dignity we have as followers of Jesus Christ, that the least important member of God's kingdom is greater than the greatest man in history. You have to take that in. The dignity, the blessings, how we are held in such esteem by our God who created us. I was thinking last week, a couple weeks ago, so much hype with the publicity about the royal wedding in England. But I think about our own royalty as members of the family of Christ the King. Through birth, we're born into a human family, but through baptism, we're born into God's family, the church. And I think it's very important on this special solemnity to pay special attention to how the scripture readings pay tribute to John the Baptist, but they also pay tribute to you and me as present-day followers of Jesus. Pope Francis has a lot to say about our role of making salvation visible, making God present in our daily lives. Pope Francis says that we are to be messengers of joy, to share our faith, the good news, and how fortunate we are, how blessed we are, how selected we are to be a follower of Jesus, members of the family of Christ the King. He says that we are to point Jesus out to those who seek him. He goes on to say, this is really strong, we have to think of ourselves as God's own personal messenger, as surely as was St. John the Baptist. If we linger for a moment and think about how privileged we are, how we have been selected and elected, it also implies the responsibility we have of proclaiming God's charity and mercy in our small individual ways. where we find ourselves in our homes and community. I think it's so important today to remember that God has fashioned us to be his servants. We have been fashioned and blessed to service him. And we have to remember what Jesus said: much will be required of the person entrusted with much. We are to be the light to nations. We are to make God visible. We are to bring a God to wherever we go by our joy, our faith, our steadfastness, our loyalty, and faith.